You get in office, and that red line are dead bodies. I've been on the Rio Grande, and I've seen dead bodies floating there who've drowned. What do you say to the Texas farmers and ranchers who find pregnant ladies dead on their property, who find toddlers dead on their property? What do you say to them? Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job. These are modern-day leg irons because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Conservative Chronicle. Today, we're breaking down one of the most intense Senate confrontations in recent history. Senator Ted Cruz just obliterated Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas in a fiery debate over the border crisis, and trust me, you do not want to miss this. Dead bodies in the Rio Grande, over 5.5 million.
Senator said it was revolting. I'm not going to address it.
Your refusal to do your job is revolting. Is there a crisis at our southern border?
Senator, there is a very significant...
That's a yes or no question.
There's a very significant...
Is there a crisis?
Senator, there's a very significant challenge.
I think your microphone is not on.
There is a very significant challenge that we are facing.
Yes or no, is there a
border.
Crisis?
I believe I've addressed that question.
So you're refusing to answer?
Senator, there is a very significant challenge, and
will you answer if there's a crisis?
Therefore, we are dedicating the resources.
Okay, so you're refusing to answer. Well, Secretary Mayorkas, I'll tell you someone who is willing to answer, which is your and President Biden's chief of the Border Patrol in a...
Illegal crossings. Drug cartels raking in billions. Cruz demanded answers, but Mayorkas? He dodged, deflected, and refused to take responsibility. Before we dive into this 10-bullet-point breakdown, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you love straight facts and no-nonsense analysis. Let's get into it. First up, Cruz doesn't hold back. He confronts Mayorkas head-on, asking him straight up, is there a crisis at the border? And guess what? Mayorkas refuses to say the word crisis. Instead, he dances around it, calling it a significant challenge. But here's the
sworn deposition in July of 2022 when asked, would you agree, Chief Ortiz, that the southern border is currently in crisis? Answer, yes. Notice none of those wiggle words, none of that equivocation. One word, one syllable, yes. Are you willing to speak with the same clarity as Chief Ortiz? Is there a crisis at our southern border, yes or no?
Senator, I'm very proud to work alongside.
So you refuse to answer. Let me ask you the next question. Has the crisis at our southern border made Americans less safe, yes or no?
Senator, we are dedicated to the safety.
Has the crisis made Americans less safe? I don't want a discourse. It's a yes or no question.
Senator, we have a challenge of
You refuse to answer the question. Mr. Secretary, let me show you how someone doing his job answers a question in a straightforward manner. Chief Ortiz, is the crisis that is currently ongoing at the southern border making the border less safe for Americans and aliens alike? Answer, yes. One word, one syllable, 3 letters. That's how someone answers a question and does their job. You're being a politician misleading the American people. Let me give you a chance again. Will you show the same integrity Chief Ortiz shows? Is the crisis at the southern border making Americans less safe? Yes or no?
Senator, we have 260,000.
You refuse to answer the question. Let's move on.
Kicker. Cruz exposes him by quoting the Biden administration's own Border Patrol chief, who testified under oath that the border is in crisis. No political spin, just the truth. Now, let's talk about real consequences. Cruz drops a shocking stat. In 2022, 853 migrants died trying to cross the border. That's the highest number ever recorded, and the crisis doesn't stop there. 100,000 plus overdose deaths, most from fentanyl smuggled in from Mexico. Cartels using colored wristbands to track migrants, turning human trafficking into a billion-dollar business. And
security of the
next question, Mr. Mayorkas. Has the crisis made aliens less safe? Yes or no?
Senator, we are seeking...
So you won't answer that question either. It's a yes or no. Has it made aliens less safe?
Senator, smugglers are exploiting...
Has the crisis made aliens, less safe? Are you willing to answer it?
Senator, the smuggling organizations...
Okay, you're filibustering again. Let me ask you this question. How many migrants have died under President Biden?
Senator, your phrasing of the question is actually quite misleading.
How many migrants died in 2022?
Approaching our southern border?
Yes.
Precisely why we are seeking to exclude the smuggling
do you know the answer? Do you know how many died?
I do not.
You do not. Of course you don't. I know how many died. 853.
That is
853. And by the way, Here are the numbers that have died every year. You go back to 1998, you see it's consistently between 300 and 400, 300, 400, 300, 400. Suddenly, 2021, what happens? You get in office, and that red line are dead bodies. I've been on the Rio Grande, and I've seen dead bodies floating there who've drowned because of your refusal to do your job. You don't even know how many have died. What do you say to the Texas farmers and ranchers who find pregnant ladies dead on their property, who find toddlers dead on their property? What do you say to them?
I say that is why precisely we are taking it to the smuggling organizations.
But you are not. That is simply not true.
Number two, it is
let me read from the Wall Street.
When CRUZ asks how many children have been trafficked or sexually assaulted, Mayorkas refuses to answer. Unbelievable. CRUZ moves on to another huge concern.
Sure, it's a question. How many children have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers under your administration?
Senator, this is exactly why on January 5th, we announced
again,
the parole
do you know
program.
how many? Do you know how many children have been sexually assaulted?
This is why we...
Okay, you're going to refuse to answer that question as well. Let's move on. It's obvious you've been instructed to stonewall, so I'm not going to let you. You don't get to stonewall and filibuster.
Criminals slipping into the country. Over 600,000 gotaways illegal immigrants who crossed undetected. And Mayorkas has no idea how many are murderers, rapists, or terrorists. Think about that for a second. 600,000 unknown people in the country. No background checks, no accountability, and when CRUZ presses Mayorkas for numbers, silence. This is national security at risk, and the Biden administration is doing nothing. At this point, CRUZ has had enough.
And let's look at CBP encounters. You can see 500,000, 500,000, it drops to the lowest level, and boom, what happens? You show up. And that red line is you. That red line is Joe Biden. And you're claiming nothing happened. Oh gosh, this was here before us. No, you made the decision to allow this to happen. Let me ask you, we now have over 5.5 million people who've entered this country illegally under Joe Biden. How many murderers have you released into America?
Senator, I'm not aware of any murderer whom we've...
So you don't know?
Senator, let me say something.
Do you know?
If you take a look at...
No, you don't get to give a speech. Do you know how many murderers you've released?
I'm just trying to answer your question.
How many rapists
Senator.
have you released?
Senator, I'm trying to answer your question.
You can answer, I know or I don't know.
Senator, any individual who poses...
Calls out Mayorkas directly, saying his failure to secure the border has led to deaths, child trafficking, and crime, and then boom. He tells Mayorkas he should resign. If you had integrity, you would resign. And how does Mayorkas respond? By calling CRUZ's words revolting, not the deaths, not the trafficking, not the skyrocketing.
You get to answer questions. You don't get to give speeches.
Senator, I served as a federal prosecutor.
All right, you're refusing to answer. If you look at, she was lying, and she was not lying on her own. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. Now, the photograph of people walking. She was lying on behalf of the President of the United States. This is a photograph from just one day along the Rio Grande of hundreds of thousands of people walking across the border. You have allowed this to happen. The photograph that was before, what are these wristbands?
I don't know what they are.
You
Senator.
don't know what they are. Mr. Secretary, you have just testified to the American people you're incompetent at your job, because I've been to the southern border, and if you go to the southern border, along the southern border, you see thousands of these wristbands because the illegal immigrants wear them. The drug cartels, every color corresponds to how many thousands of dollars they owe the cartels. You have turned these cartels into multi-billion-dollar criminal organizations, and these are modern-day leg irons because these are children being sold into sex slavery, and you don't even know what they are. That is astonishing. Mr. Secretary, how many children have been sold into sex slavery under your administration?
Senator, we are taking it to the cartels.
How many children have been sold into sex slavery? Do you know how many children have been sold into sex slavery?
To an unprecedented degree.
Mr. Secretary, I want to say to you right now,
it is
your behavior is disgraceful, and the deaths, the children assaulted, the children raped, they are at your feet, and if you had integrity, you would resign. And I will tell you, the men and women of the Border Patrol, they've never had a political leader undermine them. They despise you, Mr. Secretary, because you're willing to let children be raped.
In crime, he's more offended by CRUZ's words than by the actual human suffering. CRUZ exposed the failures of the Biden administration, but the mainstream media won't talk about it. That's why you need to help spread the truth. Comment below. Should Mayorkas resign? Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. This debate isn't over and we'll keep holding them accountable. See you next time.